After my husband's first love came back, I saw the question he answered on a website. What's it like to marry someone you don't love? He said, I don't love my wife. Even though she treats me wholeheartedly and takes good care of our home, I still think about my ex-girlfriend. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. Someone commented below, aren't you afraid your wife will see this and divorce you since you didn't post anonymously? He replied, no, she won't. She can't leave me. He didn't expect that the next day, I would place the divorce papers on his bedside table and quietly leave. Chapter 1. After Sophia came back, I found Matthew's answer on a Quora website. What's it like to marry someone you don't love? He didn't post anonymously, and his profile picture was still a photo of him with Sophia's back. It probably feels like life is a stagnant pool. I don't love my wife. After I broke up with my first love, my family pressured me to get married quickly. At that time, I was disheartened and felt that as long as it wasn't her, it didn't matter who I married. My wife had always liked me. We had known each other for a long time, knew each other well, so I proposed to her. I still remember how she cried with joy that day, asking me repeatedly if she was dreaming. Honestly, I felt quite guilty. She has treated me wholeheartedly over the years, taking care of everything, big or small, in our home. My fingers trembled slightly as I continued scrolling down. He said, but I don't love her. All these years, I've always been thinking about my first love. I know this makes me a terrible person. I've tried to love her, but I just can't. Someone commented below, you didn't even post anonymously. Aren't you afraid your wife will see this and divorce you? His tone remained as confident as ever. No, she can't leave me. It's like there's an old thorn buried deep in my heart. The edges have long been smoothed by time and flesh, no longer piercing as sharply as before, but there's still a dull, persistent pain that can't be ignored. I smiled bitterly. See, he knows me so well. Even now, he knows I can't leave him. Chapter 2. That night, Matthew acted as usual. We behaved like a polite couple. After he routinely praised the dinner I made as delicious, he went to bed and turned his back to look at his phone. The 1.8-meter bed isn't that big, but with our backs turned to each other, there was still a vast, unbridgeable gap between us. I suddenly remembered the day he proposed to me. He thought I was crying tears of joy, but he didn't know that my heart was full of sorrow. He had been with Sophia for 7 years. From age 17 to 24, they had the best years of each other's lives, accompanying each other from youthful innocence to maturity. After graduating from university, Sophia wanted to pursue further studies abroad and received an offer from her ideal school. But Matthew's father was seriously ill at the time, and he was required to take over the family business and stay in the country. Long-distance relationships rarely end well. They managed to hold on at first, but as the distance grew, so did the number of problems. The time difference made it harder for them to communicate. Moreover, Matthew had just taken over the company and was incredibly busy every day. Sophia, alone in a foreign country, realized that whenever she needed Matthew, he was never there. The arguments between them became more frequent. Finally, after a big fight a year later, their conflicts reached a breaking point, and Sophia impulsively broke up with him. Things could have been salvaged at this point, but they were both too proud to back down. Matthew was grieving the recent loss of his father and couldn't focus on anything else. In the end, they drifted apart, but I knew that Matthew never really let go of Sophia. When he proposed to me, I already knew that he didn't love me. He was just in a chaotic state, looking for someone to marry to get it over with, and I happened to be the best candidate, so he randomly chose me. I understood all of this, but the saddest part was that even though I knew all this, when he casually proposed to me with a ring his secretary had bought, I couldn't help but say yes. That day, I cried so much that I couldn't stop, and he thought I was crying out of happiness. But in reality, I was just sad. Sad because I knew he didn't love me, but I still couldn't help but love him. Chapter 3. Whether intentionally or not. Right after Sophia returned, our university class president organized a reunion. After 3 years, Sophia was even more beautiful than before. She wore a long dress in a Morandi color, her long, wavy hair cascading down her back. She looked relaxed yet elegant, But Matthew didn't glance at her once after entering. He just sat beside me, thoughtfully placing food on my plate. At home, he never peeled shrimp for me, but now he carefully placed peeled shrimp in my bowl, smiling gently. Eat more. Sophia's movements paused, and the smile on her face slowly faded. I suddenly found it a bit funny. In this drama that seemed to involve 3 people, they were the ones performing with passion, while I was just an undeserving fool watching from the sidelines. After a few rounds of drinks, a tipsy, bald classmate loudly joked at Sophia. "Sophia, how come you're even more beautiful than before? Do you have a boyfriend now? If not, why not consider me?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Matthew's body tense up. Sophia smiled. "No, but I don't think we'd be a good match." "Why not?" The bald man, rejected, was slightly angered and started to speak carelessly. "You're not still thinking about Matthew, planning to stay pure for him, are you? He's married now. Let me tell you, once a woman is over 25, it's hard to find a man. Do you still think you're some kind of fairy?" Sophia's smile faltered. "You've had too much to drink." Another classmate, who seemed eager to stir up trouble, pulled out her phone. Maybe they both still have feelings. I saw Matthew answered a question on Quora about what it's like to marry someone you don't love. "Sophia, isn't this photo of you and Matthew? It's still in your WeChat moments." Hearing the potential for drama, everyone pulled out their phones. "Where is it?" Even Sophia, seeing that answer, looked at Matthew with a complicated expression. Her eyes slightly reddened. Matthew met her gaze. I felt cold all over, barely able to stop myself from trembling. In front of everyone, they all knew that my husband actually loved another woman. In that moment, I felt as if I had been stripped bare and paraded through the streets. I wanted to stand up and run away immediately. After what felt like an eternity, Matthew finally spoke. His voice was steady, but if you listened carefully, there was a slight tremble. "It's nonsense. My wife and I are fine. Let's continue eating." The classmates nodded and put away their phones. But throughout the rest of the meal, I could feel countless eyes on us. The gazes that landed on me were filled with either pity or ridicule. This was probably the hardest meal I've ever had to endure. As the gathering was ending, Matthew said, "I'm going to the restroom," and got up to leave. Not long after, Sophia also left. Several people glanced at me, some intentionally, some not. I didn't know what to feel anymore. I just pretended nothing had happened and continued eating mechanically. After the reunion, everyone left. I waited for a long time, but Matthew didn't return, so I got up to leave. But as I passed through the hallway, I suddenly heard Sophia's tearful voice. I looked over from the shadows. Sophia had hugged Matthew from behind, crying. "But you still have feelings for me." Matthew frowned. "You're overthinking it. I'm already married." Sophia, with tears in her eyes, said, "Then why didn't you dare look back at me? What about your answer, Matthew? You obviously don't love her." She sobbed. "I know this is wrong, but we were together first. If it weren't for her, we might have already gotten back together." "Matthew, I came back for you. I was immature before, but can we start over?" Matthew's body stiffened, his expression hidden in the shadows, making it hard to see. After a long time, he slowly turned around and pulled Sophia into his arms. They kissed passionately, almost desperately, as if trying to release years of suppressed emotions. And I silently watched from the side, as if a blade was tearing through my heart. I don't know why, but even though they were the ones being intimate, I was the one who ran away. When I finally reached the dim streetlight, I touched my face and realized that at some point, it had become cold and wet. Chapter 4. That night, Matthew came home very late. He seemed to want to explain something to me, opening his mouth but not knowing what to say. I smiled as usual. "Let's rest first. We can talk about it later." He relaxed, his furrowed brow easing. When I took my blanket and headed to the guest room, he was momentarily stunned but didn't stop me. In the middle of the night, I opened Quora. There were a lot more comments under Matthew's answer, probably from classmates who had witnessed the drama tonight, and his reply was still the same. "No, She won't. She can't leave me. The night outside was blurred by the mist, casting shadows through the window, and the sheer curtains billowed in the wind. I sat up and took a divorce agreement from the drawer. Over the years, although Matthew didn't love me, he was still a good husband. All these years, he handed over all his salary and bonuses to me. In fact, over the past year, he had started to change gradually. He would kiss me before leaving the house, and during our intimate moments before bed, he would whisper my nickname tenderly. When I had trouble sleeping due to menstrual cramps, he would warm his hands and gently massage my abdomen. Several times I woke up in the middle of the night to find him nodding off from exhaustion, but his hands still moving. At that time, I thought he might fall in love with me, but when Sophia returned, I realized it was all just my illusion. I divided the money we had saved over the years into 2 parts, signed the divorce agreement, quietly placed it on the coffee table, then dragged my suitcase to the door, gently closing it as I left. Then, I replied under Matthew's answer, "No, she can leave too." Chapter 5. Matthew didn't call until the afternoon of the next day. He must have been busy entangled with Sophia, only just noticing the divorce papers I had left behind. "What do you mean?" Matthew tried to suppress his anger. "Grace, you want a divorce?" I was silent for a moment, then softly said, "Yes, sign the papers, and when you have time, we can finalize the paperwork. Don't worry, I didn't ask for much. The house and the car are yours." But I didn't finish before Matthew interrupted me angrily. "You've gone too far. Just because of what happened last night, you think this is necessary?" His tone was mocking. "You're upset because of that answer I wrote?" "Yes, I was wrong to write it. But haven't I told you how much I hate being threatened? Do you think this will?" "I know." I cut him off. "That's why I'm serious, Matthew." I fought back the tears stinging my nose. "I was in the hallway last night. I saw you too." Matthew froze, unable to speak. He hurriedly tried to explain. "It's not what you think." "Let me explain." I choked up. "Matthew, what were you feeling when you wrote that answer? When you trampled on my feelings? Were you laughing at me, thinking I was just a fool? Is loving you really that worthless to you?" For once, Matthew was at a loss, stammering, "That's not what I meant. I was just drunk that day, writing nonsense." "Grace, don't overthink this." "Overthink?" I forced a bitter smile. He had already made it clear. What was there left to overthink? I lifted my head, determined not to let the tears fall. "Matthew, let's get divorced." During that phone call, Matthew adamantly refused to divorce me. He just said I should think it over. I didn't mind. If it came to it, I could sue for divorce, or after 2 years of separation, it would be granted automatically. It would just take a little more time. I could endure him not loving me, but I couldn't endure him trampling on my feelings like this. It seemed that misfortunes never come singly. A few days later, it suddenly started pouring rain as I was leaving work. The visibility was poor, and when the car in front suddenly slowed down, the taxi I was in rear-ended it. My lower abdomen slammed hard into the metal corner of the laptop I was holding, and my forehead hit the window, making everything go black. A buzzing filled my ears. After being taken to the hospital and undergoing several tests, the doctor frowned slightly. "You should be more careful since you're pregnant. You already showed signs of a threatened miscarriage. The baby was almost lost." I was stunned. "A baby?" Seeing my expression, the doctor asked, puzzled, "Didn't you know you were pregnant?" I shook my head, my hand instinctively touching my lower abdomen. It was flat, with no sign of movement, and I couldn't imagine that a tiny life was already growing there, connected by blood. My mind was a mess, and I bit my lip. What a bitter twist of fate. All these years with Matthew, I had always wanted a child. I used to think that a child would help me hold on to his heart. So I pestered him endlessly. He even scolded me. "Don't you have any shame as a woman?" Even so, I never managed to have a child. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Now, when we're about to divorce, the baby comes at the worst possible time. The pain in my head persisted, and I felt nauseous. The doctor checked again and said, It could be a concussion. You need to be hospitalized for observation. And given your condition, you need someone to take care of you. Have your family come and handle the paperwork. I pressed my lips together and, after thinking it over, sent a message to Matthew. When he didn't respond, I called him. It was humiliating, having just threatened him with divorce, and now calling him right away. But I had married into his city, and I had no relatives or close friends here. He was the only one I could turn to. The phone rang for a long time before he picked up, and I could hear faint music and voices in the background, fighting back the pain in my head. I spoke hoarsely. Matthew, could you come and stay with me? I'm in the hospital. The car had an accident. Matthew's voice was cold and mocking. Grace, can't you come up with a better excuse? I didn't. He cut me off. Weren't you so strong yesterday, threatening me with divorce? What? Did you regret it already? In the background, I heard Sophia's voice. Matthew, come over here. Before hanging up, Matthew left me with a sneer. Grace, I really looked down on you. Then there was nothing but the cold electronic buzz of a deadline. I stared blankly at the phone, feeling like my heart had stopped beating. The pain in my head and abdomen faded away, leaving only the dull ache in my chest. The doctor continued. You need to get an injection to stabilize the pregnancy. Your condition isn't ideal, and if this continues, it will be hard to keep the baby. I looked up, expressionless, and said, there's no need. I don't want this baby. You want to terminate the pregnancy? After a moment's pause, I nodded. My tongue tasted bitter and numb, but I still forced out the words. Yes, I want to terminate this pregnancy. Chapter 6. Because I wasn't in good condition on the first day, the doctor scheduled the surgery for the next day. Before the surgery, I opened my phone and saw Sophia's post on her moments. In the revolving restaurant at the TV station, she was making a wish over a cake, and Matthew was beside her, smiling gently at her. The caption read, wishing that every year from now on, you'll be by my side. A sharp pain shot through my lower abdomen, quickly spreading to every part of my body. I couldn't help but hunch over slightly, gripping the bed rail for support. No wonder he refused to come and be with me. He was busy celebrating Sophia's birthday. Of course. The birthday of the woman he loves is much more important than that of a wife he doesn't love. The doctor walked over. You haven't signed your consent form yet. Has your family member arrived? My eyes felt dry, painfully so, but no tears would come. I thought, maybe I've cried all my tears already. I opened my mouth. I don't have a family member. Doctor, I'll sign it myself. A miscarriage isn't a major surgery with anesthesia. I didn't feel a thing, and even when I got off the operating table, it didn't feel that painful. I just felt empty, like a part of me had disappeared. After the car accident and the miscarriage, I took half a month off to recover at home. Once I felt a bit better, I went downstairs to buy some of my favorite foods, trying to pass the time by cooking at home. I needed to keep myself busy, otherwise, the emptiness would consume me. I went to a supermarket I used to frequent, but as I was picking out some beef, an irritating voice sounded behind me. Isn't this Grace? You're grocery shopping too? I turned around, and there was Sophia, her arm hooked around Matthew's, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Why are you here alone? I didn't want to say a single word to her and turned to leave, but someone grabbed my wrist. Matthew looked at the bandage on my leg, his brow furrowed. You're hurt? I sneered. It's only been a few days, and you've already forgotten? Mr. Wong, how could you be suffering from dementia at such a young age? That day, Matthew looked slightly dazed. I thought you were lying to me. I laughed. Mr. Wong was busy celebrating someone else's birthday. Of course, there was no time to come over, but we're getting divorced. Who you want to be with is your business. It's none of my concern. Matthew's brows furrowed tightly, and he looked at me with some surprise. I had never spoken to him like this before, but perhaps because he felt guilty, he patiently tried to explain. It's not what you think. That day, I looked at him, then yanked my hand out of his grip with force. Get lost, I said coldly. Matthew, just hearing you talk makes me sick. I didn't want to look at his face that made me feel so uncomfortable anymore. So I turned and left. Matthew stared at me in shock. The words in his mouth left unspoken. That evening, I received a WeChat message from Matthew. He hadn't messaged me in a long time. Scrolling up, the chat history was almost entirely messages from me. Will you be home for dinner tonight? I'm making your favorite sweet and sour pork. Today I saw a stray cat by the roadside that had eyes a bit like yours. Haha, JPG. The last message was the one I sent from the hospital that day. I was in a car accident. Can you come be with me? He never replied. I had been foolishly playing a one-woman show. But today, he actually messaged me. Matthew explained. Sophia said she had no one to celebrate her birthday with when she returned to the country. So I went. There's nothing between us. Don't misunderstand. I don't know what got into him. But for the first time, he was softening his stance. It was wrong of me not to come to the hospital that day. It won't happen again. I suddenly found it a bit ridiculous. Being with Matthew. It seemed like everything was wrong. The person was wrong. The timing was wrong. Everything was wrong. When I wanted a child, I couldn't have one. And now that we were about to divorce, the child came, only for me to have to terminate the pregnancy. I had waited so long for his explanation. And now that I didn't need it, he came running to offer it. How absurd. It seems that we were never meant to be together. I had forced it. Now I've finally realized that a forcibly picked melon is so bitter. Chapter 7. A few days later, I received another call from Matthew. It was midnight, and his voice was hoarse, tinged with a hint of pain and impatience. Where did you put my stomach medicine? Years ago, Matthew was so busy with work that his meals were irregular, leading to a severe stomach condition. Over the years, I had been meticulously caring for his stomach. Every meal he ate was prepared by me, with every ingredient carefully chosen. In addition to Western medicine, he had been taking a type of traditional Chinese medicine. However, one of the ingredients was difficult to find, so I would fly to the old Chinese medicine doctor every 3 months, bring back the supply, and brew the medicine for him daily. I guess since I left, no one has been there to watch over the pot for hours to brew his medicine. Has his stomach condition flared up again? Without any emotion, I replied, it's all gone. Matthew was stunned, and after a moment of silence, he spoke with a voice tinged with pain. Why didn't you go get more? Go get more this time. During the years we were together, I never once missed giving him his medicine, except when the doctor specifically advised against it. Even in the freezing cold of winter, I would fly to buy the medicine, waiting outside the pharmacy at 4 in the morning to make sure I got it in time. But now, on what grounds does he expect me to do this? I coldly responded, are you out of your mind? Go ask Sophia to get it for you. Before he could finish, I hung up the phone and blocked him on all platforms. I thought that would be the end of it. But when I got off work the next day, Matthew was waiting for me. He stood by the roadside, wearing a long black coat, looking like a model in a fashion shoot. My colleagues passing by couldn't help but glance at him, whispering excitedly. I was momentarily stunned, then frowned. When we were together, I had fantasized about him picking me up from work, but he never liked being seen in public with me and always refused. Now that we were getting divorced, what was he doing here? Seeing me, Matthew strode over and grabbed my arm. He was displeased. Why did you hang up on me last night? I looked at him. He was genuinely confused and annoyed, as if this whole time, I had been acting in a one-woman play while he remained detached. Suddenly, I felt exhausted, a wave of indescribable disgust washing over me. I yanked my arm out of his grasp. We're getting divorced. I don't think there's any need for us to talk anymore. He frowned. Divorced? Are you still mad about Sophia? I already told you there's nothing between us. Can't you stop being so unreasonable? Looking at the man I had loved for so many years, I suddenly felt an overwhelming surge of anger. Even now, he was still referring to that woman as Sophia, still insisting there was nothing between them. And he thought I was being unreasonable. Does he not realize why I'm angry? Does he not understand that he shouldn't be saying this? No, Matthew is a shrewd businessman. He knows exactly what to say in any given situation. He just doesn't care. He thinks of me as nothing more than a dog who, no matter how much he hurts, abandons, or disrespects me, will always wag its tail and stay by his side. He just doesn't think I'm worth any effort. Rage roared through me, burning away my last shred of reason. I suddenly couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him hard across the face. Slap! I didn't hold back at all. The slap was firm and fierce, causing Matthew's head to jerk to the side. For a moment, he stood there, eyes wide in shock, completely stunned. At that moment, Sophia suddenly marched up from behind him, her brow furrowed. Matthew, what are you doing here? She turned to me, her expression instantly changing to one of disdain, almost sneering. Grace, can you stop bothering Matthew? He's always loved me. If it weren't for you interfering, we might have been married by now. And even now, you still won't let him go? Can you have a little dignity? Sophia's company was nearby. She must have just gotten off work. What a twisted fate that the three of us would run into each other like this. Her words immediately drew the attention of passers-by, and I could already see people taking pictures and whispering, "So she's the other woman. Huh? How shameless. The wife is so pretty, yet she's still causing trouble. Unbelievable." I clenched my fists, trying to hold back, but I couldn't stop myself and slapped Sophia too. This slap carried all my pent-up anger, and she was stunned by it. When she came to her senses, she was furious, completely losing her composure as she rushed at me, shouting, "How dare you hit me? How dare you hit me?" In the past, I had always held back because I loved Matthew, not wanting to upset him. I always believed that if I treated him well, if I stayed by his side, after 5 or 10 years, he would eventually notice me. But now I realize that you can't earn love by trying to impress yourself. Love is selfish. Just like he loves Sophia, she doesn't have to do anything. Yet she's been on his mind for all these years. And no matter how much I humbled myself, no matter how much I gave, he doesn't love me. I grabbed Sophia's wrist and said clearly, one word at a time. First of all, I didn't interfere with your relationship. We got together a year after you broke up. Secondly, we're still married. We're legally husband and wife. You're the one interfering in someone else's relationship. Lastly, I don't understand why you're so arrogant. You're the mistress breaking up a marriage, yet you dare to lecture the wife? Is this what you call dignity? If that's what you call dignity, then I can't learn it. I studied law in college, and the angrier I am, the clearer my mind becomes. Everyone around us was shocked. So she's the mistress. And she's still this arrogant? Unbelievable. Are mistresses really this shameless nowadays? Let's post this online and make her famous. Mistresses deserve to be shamed. Sophia glanced around, biting her lip hard, then turned to Matthew with a tearful expression, grabbing the corner of his coat. Trembling, "Matthew, she hit me. Are you just going to stand there and let her hit me? You love me, right? Tell her. It's her who interfered with us." I sneered. "Don't play the innocent card with me." I slapped him too. "Go ahead. Have him hit me back." Matthew remained silent. In Sophia's shocked gaze, he slowly pried her hand off. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I love my wife, and I have no intention of divorcing her. Sorry." "Sophia, a misunderstanding?" Her eyes widened in disbelief as she stepped back. "Then what about everything else? You said you couldn't forget me. You kissed me while she was in the hospital. You were celebrating my birthday. And now you're telling me it's a misunderstanding? Matthew, are you even a man?" Matthew replied softly, "I admit, I had some unresolved feelings for you, but I've realized that it was just leftover resentment from those years. I've had a good life with Grace. I'm the one who owes you an apology." Sophia covered her mouth, tears streaming down from her red, swollen eyes. "Bastard!" A moment later, she slapped Matthew across the face, then ran off, unable to hold back her tears. I didn't want to be gawked at like a spectacle any longer, so I turned to leave. Matthew tried to stop me, but I shrugged him off, without expression. I said, "Let's find a time to finalize the divorce." He gritted his teeth. "I'm not divorcing you." I shrugged. "Do Do as you like. I'll just wait until we've been separated for 2 years and then sue for divorce. Then I got into my car, stepped on the gas, and drove away from him quickly. Our relationship has become a joke. I believe Matthew has genuinely realized that life without me doesn't suit him, because I've taken such good care of him over the years, ironing every shirt, preparing every meal to his taste, giving him every dose of medicine. He never had to worry about anything at home, big or small, and for me, he didn't need to remember all our anniversaries or even show up for my birthday. He knew I wouldn't get angry with him. Now that I'm gone, who else will love him as wholeheartedly as I did? Of course. He's panicking, trying to distance himself from Sophia and return to his comfort zone. But I no longer want to be the fool who just waits, waiting for him to fall in love with someone else and then leave me heartlessly, waiting for him to come back to me when he's had enough, as if I were just a dog he could summon and dismiss at will. Lying on that operating table, I cried, countless times praying he would come see me, even just once, even just one glance, so I wouldn't feel so alone and terrified in that bloody moment. But he didn't even give me that chance for self-deception. If I forgive him, then I'm betraying the child I had to kill with my own hands, and I'm betraying myself for all the suffering I've endured. Chapter 8. I didn't pay much attention to what happened that day, but I didn't expect that a few days later, at work, a colleague suddenly approached me, hesitating before handing me their phone. "Grace, is this you?" I froze and looked at the phone screen. It was the familiar scene outside the company building, with Matthew, Sophia, and me arguing. The video was playing right at the moment I slapped Sophia, leaving her stunned while I called her a mistress. The video had gone viral, with thousands of comments and bullet chats flooding in. This mistress is shameless. She's the one who interfered in someone else's relationship and still dares to confront the wife. Serves her right to be slapped. Haha. The wife is so cool. I love it. Let's wait a bit before jumping to conclusions. Just because she said it doesn't mean it's true. Am I the only one who noticed how handsome the guy is? He looks better than a celebrity. No wonder 2 beautiful women are fighting over him. Don't let your morals be swayed by his looks. A cheating scumbag should just disappear, no matter how handsome he is. Apparently, because Matthew and Sophia were both quite attractive, the video had shot to the top of the trending list. Sophia and Matthew were being thoroughly trashed online. Matthew got off lightly. He didn't use Weibo much, though his Quora response was dug up, with people flocking to call him a scumbag. Sophia wasn't as lucky. She loved sharing her life on Weibo, and now she was being targeted and flooded with comments calling her shameless, with tens of thousands of people piling on. Panicked, she made a foolish mistake. Normally, online drama blows over quickly, and all she needed to do was stay quiet for a while. Instead, she hastily tried to defend herself, posting old photos of her and Matthew along with chat records, implying that they were originally a couple and only broke up because I interfered, insisting she wasn't a mistress. But the netizens didn't buy it. Sophia, even now you're still lying? We all know that after you went abroad, you were the one who broke up with Matthew. Grace got together with him a year later. You're the one who's shameless. Just because Matthew broke up with you, does that mean he should stay faithful to you forever? Everyone he dates after you is interfering? Do you have no shame? Sophia's old Weibo posts from when they broke up were dug up, where she herself had written, "Love couldn't survive the distance. Whenever I needed you, you were never there." This tweet confirmed that their breakup was due to long-distance issues, and had nothing to do with me. The drama's intensity escalated, and because she engaged in arguments with commenters, Sophia was dubbed the shameless mistress, and her personal information was exposed. Even her university thesis was found to be plagiarized. And under pressure, the school revoked her degree. The high-paying job she had just started also fired her. In an instant, Sophia became a public pariah, with people from all corners condemning her. Matthew, on the other hand, managed to slip into the background of the incident. Aside from being cursed a few times at the start, he didn't face much fallout. He even found time to switch numbers and call me. Sophia has paid the price, and I've been scolded. You've gotten everything you wanted. Grace, come back. The thought of it made me sick, and I hung up immediately, but Matthew seemed to become addicted to it, persistently trying to reach out to me. It wasn't until 3 months later that he gradually stopped. I thought he had finally come to terms with it. But then I got a call from his secretary. Madam, Chairman Wang is refusing to undergo surgery. Please come and persuade him. At first, I thought it was another one of his tricks to force me to go back. But the secretary's voice sounded different. Chairman Wang has been diagnosed with stomach cancer. It's already in the middle stages. The doctor said that if he doesn't have surgery soon, it'll be too late. Please come quickly. Shocked, I hesitated for a moment before going to the hospital. When I arrived, the secretary, looking pale, told me, after you left, Chairman Wang's life became completely chaotic. He'd eat when he remembered, and wouldn't eat when he didn't. He stopped taking his medicine. He wouldn't sleep at night, staying up on the balcony smoking for hours. His stomach was already in bad shape, and he'd often be in so much pain that he'd break out in a cold sweat. Eventually, it got to the point where he started vomiting blood, wiping his face. The secretary continued, and now, today, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer. But Chairman Wang refused to agree to the surgery and insisted that I call you. I walked into the hospital room, where Matthew sat by the window, staring outside. When he saw me enter, he turned his head and smiled slightly. You came? After a few months apart, I almost didn't recognize him. Matthew used to be fit and strong, always working out, with a body that looked good in anything. But now, the tall, muscular man had lost so much weight that his clothes hung loosely on him. I frowned. What are you trying to do? Matthew took out a cigarette and lit it, ignoring the no smoking sign on the wall. Taking a deep drag, out of nowhere, he said, Grace, when I wrote that answer, I was being honest. I really didn't like you, and this marriage didn't mean much to me. I couldn't help but clench my fists. Did you call me here just to humiliate me? No, he continued. When I first saw Sophia again, I was genuinely excited. I really did love her when I was young. She was beautiful, capable, and a match for me. I thought I couldn't get over her. But it's strange. After spending time with her, I realized I wasn't as happy as I imagined I would be. I couldn't stop thinking about you, comparing her to you. When we ate together, she ordered a spicy dish, and I thought, if it were you, you wouldn't have ordered something that spicy because you know I can't handle it. When my stomach hurt, she panicked, and I thought, if it were you, you'd have found the medicine immediately. No, if it were you, you wouldn't have let my stomach get to that point. She's excellent, interesting, but when I was with her, I couldn't help but zone out, thinking, what are you doing right now? I interrupted him. I was getting an abortion. Matthew froze, suddenly looking up. After the car accident, the doctor asked if I wanted the baby. I tried to call you, but I couldn't get through. Later, I found out you were celebrating Sophia's birthday. I spoke with a mix of pain and bitter satisfaction. So, while you were celebrating at the revolving restaurant at the TV station, I was lying alone on an operating table, killing our child with my own hands. Matthew's already pale face turned ashen, and the cigarette burned down to his fingertips without him seeming to notice. Remaining motionless, after a long time, he finally lowered his head, taking a deep drag from the cigarette. His hand trembled violently, ashes falling to the ground. As he rasped, no wonder you won't come back. These days apart, I couldn't stop thinking about the past. Back then, whenever I came home, you'd always blush and give me a kiss. And there'd always be a meal you'd cooked waiting on the table. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now that I look back, I realize that I used to look forward to coming home. I already had everything I wanted. I had already fallen in love with you. I just didn't see it. Grace, I know I've wronged you. Now I understand how deeply I've hurt you. His eyes reddened. Can't you give me a chance to make it up to you? I coldly interrupted. Matthew, do you love me? Do you love me? Or do you love the feeling of always having someone who puts you first? Do you really want me back? Or do you just want me to keep taking care of you like before? I sneered. In the end, you've always just loved yourself. When Sophia brought you excitement, You didn't hesitate to abandon me and be with her. Did you not know I'd be hurt and upset? Of course. You knew. But you didn't care. Then you realized she couldn't take care of you the way I did. And you started thinking about me. To put it bluntly, you've always been selfishly chasing what you want. Love? Do you even deserve to say the word love? Don't disgust me. Matthew's gaze dimmed with each word I spoke. He was silent for a long time. Whether you have the surgery or not is up to you. But as long as we're still legally married, I'll have to come sign the papers for you. With that, I turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, Matthew spoke. Grace, you're right about everything. I am a selfish person who would do anything to get what I want. You gave your all to me, but all I gave you was pain. I don't deserve you. But there's one thing I didn't lie about. His voice seemed to come from a distant place. I really do love you. I lifted my head, saying nothing, and pushed open the door. I had waited too long to hear those words. So long that even now, the lingering emotions in my body made my eyes well up with tears. But I won't turn back anymore. I've finally realized that someone who doesn't love you never deserves your love. Chapter 9. I heard about Matthew again 2 months later. By then, I had already started a new life. I forced myself to delete and throw away everything related to him. I had loved him for so long that this habit had become a part of me. Ripping it out was like tearing off a piece of my flesh, leaving a bloody wound. But I had to move forward. Just as I was trying to forget everything, his secretary called. Chairman Wang's surgery was quite successful, but the doctor said it won't prolong his life by much. We're planning to go abroad for treatment. Chairman Wang asked me to tell you that he knows you don't want to talk to him. He's leaving the day after tomorrow. But tomorrow morning, he wants to go with you to get the divorce certificate. I was stunned. Matthew had always refused to divorce, and I had almost stopped thinking about it, just waiting to file the lawsuit after 2 years. I never expected him to suddenly agree. When I saw Matthew again, he was almost a skeleton, sitting in a wheelchair, looking as if a gust of wind could knock him over. He was nothing like the confident, spirited man he used to be. He didn't try to hold on anymore, just handed me the divorce agreement. Take a look. After this, you'll finally be rid of me. I flipped through it and realized that he had left almost all his assets and money to me. This, I frowned. I don't want this much of your money. We agreed to split it evenly. Keep it. I have no use for it anymore, and I won't be able to spend it for long. He smiled with a sense of relief. I caused you a lot of trouble before. Consider this my insignificant compensation. Maybe facing death really can change a person completely. Matthew had become someone entirely different from before, much calmer. We completed the divorce process smoothly. As we walked out, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. Years ago, I had come to this same place, full of joy, to marry the man I had loved for so many years, thinking we would be happy forever. But in just 3 short years, everything had changed. I'll be going now. Matthew gripped the small booklet tightly in his hand and waved at me. I don't know if I was imagining it, but his eyes seemed to glisten with a hint of red. Tomorrow, I'm leaving for the US. I don't know if we'll ever see each other again in this life. Take care of yourself. I should hate the man in front of me. He had hurt me deeply. But at this moment, all I felt was a dull ache in my chest, a bitter taste spreading through my mouth. Goodbye. He was pushed away by his secretary, still waving at me as he went. Grace, be happy. I wiped the corners of my eyes and held back, not saying a word. I had already said everything, both what should and shouldn't be said, over the years. Now, there was nothing left to say. Perhaps, for us, this was the best ending. Let's part ways here, and each go our own way. I turned and walked away, and we moved farther and farther apart, backs to each other, until, finally, we were out of sight. Today, the sun was shining brightly, so bright it was almost blinding. As I walked, everything in front of me became blurry, but I won't look back. No matter how much it hurts, I'll keep moving forward. In my heart, I silently said, goodbye, my past. Goodbye, Matthew.